When Steph Curry drops the ball back off to Draymond and continues to run through while both defenders lose track of him, it's not a coincidence that he ends up wide open because it's all due to his off-ball movement. So once he feeds this up fake, it gets Rob Williams in the air, and by adding in this slight sidestep, it generates just a little more space, so now Curry can rise up to let it fly. His confidence to make shots from wherever on the court at any time is what separates him apart from every single shooter the NBA has ever seen. And by having many different tools in his bag to destroy the defense with, it makes containing him on the floor one of the hardest things to do. You can't afford to get lazy when guarding him simply because you never know when he will let the cannon fire. So as you watch here on this play, as Curry is looking around the court for a teammate in motion, after coming off this ghost screen, he looks so calm that you're not even expecting him to shoot, but his gather is right into his shooting pocket, and now the defense is just too late as the ball is already in the air to go drop in. Time and time again, Curry finds these little pockets of space and opportunities to let it fly, and trust me, it doesn't take a whole lot of it. With most shooters around the league, they either have a quick release but can't create enough space at times, or they can create the space but the release really isn't that quick, so they can't beat the contest 9 times out of 10. But when you watch Steph on the court, he has both of these skills equipped, and this is why he can literally shoot the ball over anyone in front of him. When you're not the fastest, super athletic, or most physical guy on the court, there's only one thing you can be, and that's the best shooter to ever let it fly. When looking at his shooting splits from deep last season, Curry knocked down 45% of his 6 pull-up attempts per game and 41% of his 5 catch and shoot deep balls a game. In totality, Curry shot 41% from deep range, and shooting from the perimeter isn't only where he excels, as Curry drained 47% of his 136 mid-range attempts this past season. Yeah, his shooting is out of this world, and with many keys that lead to his deadly shooting stroke, you really can't stop Curry because his bag of tricks simply runs too deep. When it comes to being one of the best shooters ever, there's perks that come with that, and this first one that we will cover is the ability to deceive the defense. Now when selling defenders, it's a 2-lane road that leads to the same destination. If you take more of the passive approach, it's going to be that off-ball movement into these up fakes that sell the shot, and then Curry is granted a wide open butter biscuit from the outside. Now look, before you start thinking it's all passive and no hard work at all, don't get too ahead of yourself, because running around the court non-stop until you find yourself open is tiresome and can sometimes be difficult to break away from the defender. As Steph starts at the left corner of the broadcast here, you can see it's an unconventional screen simply by the way he runs around Draymond. Then Curry runs Williams into a DiVincenzo back screen, and at this point, this is where communication is crucial for the defense, as you can see Williams points for Giddey to take Steph on the clear out, but since DiVincenzo blows by in the same direction Steph is running, it makes Giddey slide over to stop the drive. The other Williams gets caught ball watching in the paint, so now he has to close out aggressively on a world-class shooter, allowing Steph to bait him on the up fake and then sidestep into a pull-up. Just watching that one play alone, you get to see all the little details that go into his off-ball movement, but in real time, all of this happens in the blink of an eye. Having such a high-class motor and absurd court navigation is what leads to Curry being an amazing spot finder, and just by taking a microscopic lens and hovering over these plays, this is when you see Curry spin back to go baseline on a defender, and with much experience to know when to run guys off the screens at the right time, Curry slows down so DiVincenzo can get in position, so as he comes off the screen, the defense is forced to lunge out since the initial defender got caught up for a second. Curry then attacks the closeout, which makes the defender open up, feeds the step back to generate more space, and with this beautiful shot fake, the defense is now on a trampoline, and Curry can easily pull up from beyond the arc. These shots when running off the ball is exactly why they say practice like you're in game, because giving it up and sprinting to your spot to stop on a dime with balance is something you can't easily replicate, and this is a main predicate to Steph's game. Strategical movement patterns on the court is what helps shred a lot of defenses, so although this is more of a passive route, Steph can take this same approach to selling the defense with the shot fakes and translate it directly into selling the defense with the drive to then pull back, gaining tons of space. I call this one the more active approach because this one can include combo dribbles and many moves to break down the defender. These drives that Curry sells the defender only work for one reason, and that's because unlike most people want to say, Curry is one of the better finishers at the rim currently. It may not be the highest volume, but on 4 attempts at the basket off the drive, Curry's converting these at a 56% rate, which is more than high enough of a conversion to be a threat when attacking. So now that we laid that groundwork, you can understand why defenders will bite so hard on the attack, allowing Steph to yank them back viciously whenever he feels like it. When catching the ball out 40 deep in the waters, this is like a tough game for the defenders to play as they can't sit back and watch, so they're forced to come up guarding him above the 3-point line. Once they do step out, Steph now has them in the palm of his hands, and by pushing hard towards the middle of the floor, it has the defense sliding their feet quickly to keep up with him. So once Curry stops on a dime with the behind the back, it sends the defenders flying, and to add in just a little bit more comfort, Steph throws in a step back to drain it from about 18 feet. These setups can be created off the fancy dribbling Curry exhibits if the drive doesn't present itself initially, but if the defense doesn't communicate in a timely manner opening up a lane, then Steph will burst out the hezzy, really fooling the defender because this side is so wide open, and with that crippling behind the back, it creates like a 3 to 4 foot gap of space, and Steph nails it in his face. If you haven't noticed already, these moves really aren't that complex. It's all about Curry seeing what the defense gives him and then reacting in a split second to gain an advantage. If the defender isn't sold on the first sale, then Curry will reset, quickly burst into another drive to bait the defense one more time, and by getting into his body on the step back, it makes the defender lose his balance touching the earth, and now his bombs away. This deception is a great skill set as it catches defenders off guard when he initiates the step back out of nowhere, but what's even more impressive than that, Curry's understanding of leverage and body positioning is truly exceptional. This right here is what we call the physical perk. He used his body to establish contact with defenders to disrupt their balance while creating space, and this all out gives Curry the upper hand as it already doesn't take much space for him to get the shot off. Times where you see the defense playing him tight, putting a hand out to check him, Steph says checkmate, digs that offhand into the chest of Lee while stepping back, and the rest is history. This not only gives Curry the space, but since he does a little hop on his step backs, he lands with his feet set ready to shoot, making his gather to release time fairly quick. Watching Austin Reaves hound Curry on this play, all it takes is a body bump from Steph, and watch closely as he squares his feet to the rim once landing, making this a quick but somewhat difficult jumper from the mid-range area. Movements like that just show the small amount of detail that goes into the physical play of Curry, but also highlight why he can get his jumper off with such a quickness. Now you're probably saying to yourself, sure, those little hops can get Curry into his shooting motion as far as the bottom half, but hey, what about the top? And to that I'll say, if you're to watch Curry come off these screens that people love to cry about, you'll notice this thing, or shall I say a perk, that we like to call the early pocket. Simply put, this means that Steph can gather the ball into his shooting pocket much quicker than your average shooter, and I'll show you exactly why. When receiving the screen, as Steph crosses to the right hand, you can see he gathers it directly into that shooting pocket while also hopping into his stance, so once he lands, it's a quick upwards motion and a fire at the rim. I know, it's more meticulous than you probably thought, and the good part about having this ability to get into his shot so quick is that even if Steph has to stay patient working off 2 different screens, when he finally gets some space and notices Valanciunas with his hands down, he can gather into his shot while in the air, and as we already know it, it's time to let it fly. There's so many examples of Steph doing this exact motion, and as they say, practice makes perfect, and for Steph, his shooting is probably just as close to perfect as we're ever gonna see. He can drain these quick trigger pulls going left or right, making him a lot to deal with for the defense on a nightly basis if they don't play the screens right, or if they simply aren't tight enough on him. Some will try to overplay and cut off Steph, but if he has to change directions on a defender to break them off before getting into his gather, then hey, so be it. And then if he needs to change up the pace by slowing down before sliding into this major space creating step back, then that's also an option as well. There's so many layers and perks you must unlock to become a skilled shooter like Stephen Curry, and as of now, he is the best shooter we have ever seen and probably will ever see. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe before heading over to watch this LeBron James 2018 playoff rewind. I thank you all for your support, and I'll see you in the next video.